All right, hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on heart health, how to keep your heart happy and healthy. Before we get started, just a couple of the normal housekeeping items to take care of. We will hopefully have some time for questions at the end of the presentation, and you can type those questions into the question box in the lower portion of your control panel. We will be posting a recording of the webinar online, but if you would like a copy of the presentation in PDF format, or if your question does not get answered today, please email our support inbox, which will be shown at the end as well. So here's the agenda we have for today. I will cover how specific lifestyle habits can help or hurt our heart health. We'll start with nutrition, then we'll go on to exercise, and then lastly we will touch on stress. So let's get started. Why is what we eat important to our heart, and how does it affect its health? In many ways, actually, which is why I am going to spend the bulk of today talking about nutrition. The first way has to do with our cholesterol. Cholesterol is tied directly to our heart health, and our nutrition is directly tied to our cholesterol. Our HDL, which is also known as your healthy cholesterol, that's the one we want to see higher, helps our heart because it helps take out the LDL out of those arteries. It's kind of like a school bus. If you've heard some of our other coaches or if you've spoken to them, it picks them up and takes that LDL to be processed and taken out of the body. Because that LDL is what builds up in our arteries, which can lead to heart disease. Triglycerides are the fat that circulates in our arteries, which also causes buildup and can lead to heart disease as well. I will touch on which foods help cholesterol, but I want to touch on the other aspects of our heart health quickly first. Blood pressure, that's a big one. That's the one most people probably think of first when they talk about our heart health, and that's exactly what it sounds like. It's the pressure that the blood puts on our arteries. The top number, our systolic blood pressure, is the pressure when your heart is contracting. The bottom number, the diastolic, is the pressure when our heart is at rest. So some of you may have heard that one number is more important than the other. Some doctors are more concerned with the bottom number than the top. Both numbers are extremely important. But again, we definitely don't want high blood pressure in our arteries all the time, which is what that diastolic number shows us. Again, I'm going to touch on types of things that we can do to help that in a minute, and I'll give you a hint. It's not all about the salt, which you may have heard in the past. And lastly, our food affects our weight, and the more weight we carry, the harder our heart has to work. A 2007 study from the Archives of Internal Medicine found that being overweight boosted the risk of heart disease by 32%, and being in the obese category increased that risk by 81%. Now again, there are obviously other factors and there are exceptions to that BMI, the obese category, things like that, but I can tell you there's absolutely a correlation to that number and your risk of heart disease. So let's get to some actual examples of the foods to eat so you can start making that grocery list for next week. If you've talked with one of our health coaches or watched the majority of our webinars, the first one is not going to surprise you, and that is getting more healthy fat. Monounsaturated fats can raise your healthy cholesterol, that HDL, which again, that's what we want more of because that can help clear out that LDL. Avocado is a great example of monounsaturated fat. Avocados also contain fiber, which helps lower your LDL or that bad cholesterol. Extra virgin olive oil is another fantastic source of monounsaturated fat. A study that had participants follow the Mediterranean diet, which is rich in fish and whole foods, fruits and veggies, things like that. And they also had them take 4 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, or EVOO, if you've heard it that way. They took that every day. They had a 30% lower risk of major heart events compared to those that followed a low-fat diet. Low fat is not the way to go, people. Extra virgin olive oil also has polyphenols, which help reduce inflammation, a word that I am going to say many times today because it drives heart disease and many other diseases. Nuts are also a great source of healthy fats. Nuts are going to also have protein in them, specifically L-arginine, which is an amino acid, which is in what proteins are made up of, that actually helps make nitric oxide, which helps us regulate our blood pressure. Again, blood pressure is very important in the heart health. Nuts also contain phytosterols, which is a plant compound that helps lower cholesterol basically by blocking its absorption into the intestine. So it just doesn't let it attach in there. To add to the list of beneficial nut nutrients, they also contain calcium, magnesium, and potassium, which are all linked to reduce heart disease and blood pressure. Now, the trick to making the right choice on nuts is to choose your raw nuts and unsalted as much as you can. We don't want to add a bunch of stuff to it. Again, I'm going to talk about salt in a minute, but it is important not to get too much, especially with the nuts. And there's really no wrong type of nuts. Walnuts and almonds are probably going to be the best for you. Those are probably some of the easiest options for you, but really any are going to be good. Omega-3 fatty acids are another type of healthy fat that you should be looking for. Those are going to increase HDL and also lower inflammation. Again, there's that word, which is the basis of pretty much all disease. Fatty fish is a really good example of foods to get your dose of omega-3s. So salmon, tuna, I'll get to that list in a second here. When we're talking about the heart specifically now, since today is about heart health, we want to try and use animal-based omega-3s. Now, the reason for this is that animal-based contains EPA and DHA, which are what are thought to help that heart health the most. Now, plant-based is not bad, flaxseed, chia seed, things like that, but it's just not going to give you as many benefits for that heart specifically, which again, that's our focus for today. So again, wild-caught salmon, sardines, tuna packets, krill are some of the better options. Krill usually comes in more supplement fashion, but again, very good options there for omega-3s. How you prepare it is important as well. Baked, broiled, or grilled is the best way to prepare those fish. Frying will basically negate the benefits that you're going to get from it for the most part. Last on the healthy fat side of things, we've got coconut oil. The popularity in coconut oil has really exploded, and for good reason. There are a ton of health benefits, including those for the heart. Coconut oil contains saturated fats, which again, they've been associated with negative health outcomes in the past, but now we know they can be very beneficial when they're from the correct sources. Coconut oil, olive oil, things like that. This healthy fat can possibly increase our healthy cholesterol, that HDL, and can also help with our LDL. Cooking with coconut oil is the easiest way that I've found to get it into your diet. So, using that with frying your eggs, things like that are going to be some of the easiest ways to make sure you get that dose in there. Next on the list of nutrients to help your heart, we have fiber. This is a pretty common one here. Fiber can help lower both cholesterol and blood sugar. Researchers think that soluble fiber binds with cholesterol particles in your digestive system and then moves them out of the body before they're absorbed. Again, it just kind of takes them away. Whole grains are going to be a great example of fiber-filled foods. Now, the difference between whole grains and refined is that whole grains have all of the parts of the grain intact, which means they have more vitamins, more minerals, and that's right, more fiber than the refined or white breads and grains. There are many breads, cereals, other snacks out there that are claiming to have whole grains, and some of them probably actually do, but most of them have such a small amount and include so much extra sugar and other not so good for you ingredients that it kind of negates the benefits of that whole grain. Well, not kind of, it does. You need to look at the labels in order to find a good source. So if you're looking at bread, the first ingredient should be 100% whole grain or 100% whole wheat. And with anything, there shouldn't be 100 other ingredients listed after that, especially sugar. Two examples of whole grains that are really, really good are going to be oats and barley. Now, when I say oats, I don't mean the instant oatmeal you get from the packets that you throw in the microwave. I mean old-fashioned or steel-cut oats, those ones that come in those big canisters with the guy on front. Don't be afraid of these. Making old-fashioned oats and steel-cut is not that much different than that packet that you just have to open up. Do your own research here because there's a million different options. Look up some recipes online. Search overnight oats for recipes that you can make ahead of time, that they're exactly what they sound like. You make them ahead of time, you set them in the fridge, and then you make them in the morning, or heat them up in the morning, or eat them cold. Now, oats contain a type of soluble fiber called beta-glucan, which has been shown to lower cholesterol. So that's why we need the whole grains like oats, because that's where we're going to get this fiber that is actually going to get you benefits to your heart. Again, barley is another whole grain that should be utilized more in our cooking. There are two kinds of barley. We have hulled and pearl barley. Hulled is the kind you want if you want the most heart-healthy benefits. That's the one that is considered the whole grain. Again, we need to have the whole grain to get those benefits. And with barley, all you have to do is bring it to a boil and let it simmer to cook it. There's, depending on how much you have, is different amounts of how long you let it simmer. But then you can put it in stews, soups, risotto. Again, there's a ton of different recipes depending on what your other taste preferences are. So do some searching tonight, find some different combinations that look good to you. But again, oats and barley are going to be the best source of those whole grains to get that fiber. Now, another type of soluble fiber is called pectin. This is similar to beta-glucan in that it's been shown to lower cholesterol by up to 10% in some studies. Fruits are a great source of pectin. Specific fruits that are going to contain more amounts are going to be your apples, your grapes, your citrus fruits, and your strawberries. With things like apples and grapes, the skin is going to have the most concentration. So make sure that you're eating the entire apple and that type of stuff. There are also some veggies that contain pectin. Okra, eggplant, carrots, and potatoes are good sources. So there, you've got some good options for this great nutrient that, again, is going to help that cholesterol and, in turn, is going to help your heart health. One more source of fiber I'm going to mention today is legumes. So those are beans, peas, and lentils, which are the best types to include in your diet for heart health. As far as beans go, some of the best options are going to be navy, kidney, black beans, garbanzo beans, which is the main thing, or chickpeas, I think, is another name for that. That's going to be your hummus, so that's a great option there. And legumes also have protein, so not only are they a great option for your heart, those are the type of food that are going to help keep you fuller longer. They're going to help you with those cravings for those not so good processed carbohydrates and sugars. So a couple great options there. Next up is antioxidants. Most of you have probably heard this term as well, but have you taken the time to know what it actually means and what it actually does? Here's a quick rundown. We have antioxidants to prevent or stop cell damage that are caused by oxidants, hence the name antioxidants. Oxidants are free radicals that are in things like the environment, created by pollution, cigarette smoke, alcohol are a few common ways that we're getting oxidants in our body. We actually also produce oxidants naturally in our body. Our body creates them to help fend off viruses and such, but what happens is you can create too many. And again, when we're combining them with those environmental things like the pollution, like the cigarette smoke, you can have an overload in your body. So then when that happens, it actually can cause serious damage and contribute to heart disease and things like cancer. So again, antioxidants are very important to help fend off those oxidants from the various sources we come in contact with. On a side note with this, you can use supplementation for antioxidants, but if you do too much, you can suppress your body's natural ability to utilize its own antioxidant system. So again, just a side note, talk with your doctor, but be careful when you're doing supplementation on things like that. And with that, let's talk about some natural sources so you don't necessarily have to worry about supplementing them. Fruits, again, we just talked about those, but especially berries are a great start for those antioxidants. Vitamin A, beta-carotene, vitamin C, vitamin E, and catechins are the antioxidants that are found in fruit. Fruit is also anti-inflammatory, again, is crucial to keeping out disease, including heart disease. Veggies, again, we're going to say those again. It's another food that not only contains that fiber that we mentioned, but also some of those antioxidants. Lycopene is found in tomatoes, which I think is technically a fruit, but there's a veggie today because that's where I put them in. Dark leafy greens, specifically kale and spinach, contain lutein and carotenoids, which are linked to lower risk of heart disease. Again, the purpose of them. Carotenoids get rid of free radicals that can lead to atherosclerosis, which is the hardening of the arteries, which again, that's going to lead to issues, heart attacks, things like that. What they think is that dark leafy greens make the body excrete more cholesterol, and again, similar to these other things that we've said, it prevents it from binding to the artery walls. All good stuff. Now, people think, oh, kale, how am I ever going to eat that? Salads, probably more on the spinach side you're going to do a salad. Some people love kale salad. They love the bitterness of it. But smoothies, you can stick it in a food processor, add it to a casserole or a soup. Those are really easy ways to get in those things. Get in this, but again, specifically spinach and kale. And we already talked about the fruit. Those are best raw, but add them into whatever you can do. Next, and you've probably heard this before as well, is dark chocolate and cocoa. Now, before you all go out and load up on Valentine's Day candy, let me get more specific. Research does back up claims that dark chocolate and cocoa can lower LDL cholesterol. Flavonoids or flavonoids are the nutrients that do that antioxidant work. Like I talked about, the antioxidants protect things from oxidating, which is bad, and cocoa and dark chocolate seem to be able to protect the LDL cholesterol from oxidation, which again, that's going to lead to our heart disease and issues. Okay, so here are the rules. You need to have the right kind of dark chocolate. You have to have the chocolate with a cocoa content of at least 75 to 85% or higher. Just because it says dark chocolate on it doesn't mean it's high quality either. So look for the percentage on the label. They should all have them on there. And again, it's still chocolate, so you still need to watch the overall amount that you eat. It can still contain high amounts of sugar. Those good quality ones are usually not going to. So again, look for those percentages, read the labels, see what you can find to get some of that dark chocolate. And again, the ounces are not very much per day that you're going to need to get that either. So one small square a day, that's what I do after my lunch every day. So something like that can give you some heart benefits with just kind of a small change there. All right, tea and coffee are next. These could be lumped under the antioxidants, but there are some other benefits that I did want to break down, so I just put this separately. Green tea is the one we usually hear about, but black and white tea also have similar health benefits, so really any kind is going to be good for you. And studies have linked tea to lower total and LDL cholesterol. Again, that's the point here. One note is that these are brewed teas. They're not the bottled sweetened teas that you find in soda machines, things like that. There are healthier versions of those bottled teas out there, but again, most of them are loaded with unnecessary sugars that are going to negate those benefits. So for the best results, I'm going to recommend the brewed tea. The first compound in that tea that's going to help our heart is catechins. These help activate nitric oxide, which again I've mentioned before, which is important for blood pressure regulation. It also helps inhibit that cholesterol absorption, again, something that I've said before, and they can also prevent blood clots, which is definitely something we don't want anywhere near our heart. Quercetin is the other compound that tea does that good work for us. Researchers say that this may improve blood vessel function and lower inflammation. There's that word again, extremely important in every aspect of our health, especially for our heart. Again, coffee is another great source of antioxidants that is thought to be beneficial to the heart. The key with coffee, and probably the hardest thing to do, is to keep it as natural as you can. Black coffee is going to be the best. So if you can train those taste buds to keep it plain, you're going to reap all the benefits. 1 to 2 cups as well is usually the recommendation. So again, black coffee, 1 to 2 cups, and you're going to get the benefits of that coffee and the antioxidants. I do want to touch quickly on some hot topics before we move on to exercise and stress. The first one is garlic. There's lots of supplements out there, and many people have heard that garlic is a great way to keep your heart healthy and has some other benefits as well. Allicin is the active compound, and that's what many of the studies have linked to lowering blood pressure, and to a smaller extent that LDL cholesterol has had a positive response to. And most of those studies do use supplements, and they specifically used aged garlic. So I want you to have a conversation with your doctor if you are looking into supplementation for garlic. Otherwise, I mean, garlic is good in food, right? So, I mean, it's not going to hurt you to get some natural garlic in anyways. And it does seem to be a good natural choice. Again, as long as you're including it with some of these other foods that we're talking about today. All right, wine. Here's what a lot of you have waited for, I'm sure. Red wine specifically has been thought of as heart healthy due to the antioxidants, specifically resveratrol, to help with inflammation, and also has polyphenols, which we talked about already, that help protect the lining of those blood vessels in your heart. Resveratrol comes from the skin of the grapes, which is why red wine has more, due to the fact that that's typically fermented with the grape skins longer than white wine is. Now, here's the bottom line with wine. The benefits seem from the studies to come from moderate amounts. Now, what does moderate mean? 1 5-ounce drink for all women and men older than 65, and 2 5-ounce drinks for men under age 65. Now, if you think about it, this is not the typical amount for most people, what they're drinking. But when you drink more than this, you run the risk of the negative effects of alcohol, including high blood pressure and heart failure, which is the exact opposite of the goal we're looking for today, right? So my takeaway with this is that if you can actually keep it within these parameters, you can see benefits. But if you don't drink now, don't start. And if you already do, just be careful with those amounts, because you can see benefits, but it's really easy to negate those benefits as well. Again, I said I talk about salt, so just a quick note. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but many people have thought that salt is the absolute enemy. It's the only thing we have to focus on when we are trying to help things like our blood pressure and our heart health. Here again, it's always good to be moderate with salt, because most of it's going to be in processed foods. And if you have other health conditions that require you to stay away from it, then yes, please be careful. But it's not the only thing that you should be focusing on, and it's not even necessarily the top thing you should be focusing on. Salt is extremely important for our bodies and for our health. If you focus on including the foods that I've already mentioned, which again are going to be more whole foods without the processing that can add that unnecessary salt, you're automatically going to be lowering that salt into a good range, but it's not necessarily, not necessary and definitely not recommended to cut salt out completely. So again, have a conversation with your doctor if you've got history, things like that, that you need to be concerned with salt about. All right, let's talk about something other than exercise, or other than food. Exercise. So important to keeping our heart physically strong. Inactivity is a major risk of heart disease, and even moderate amounts are going to help keep your heart healthy and actually can even reverse heart disease and its risk factors. So again, I'm not talking about weight loss, I'm not talking about getting a six-pack, I'm talking about heart health, and moderate physical activity is going to help you do that. You don't have to run marathons to get the benefits of exercise on your heart. Quick rundown of the benefits of that exercise: cholesterol, again, reducing inflammation in the arteries, keeping blood vessels flexible and open, and help controlling that weight. Again, it depends on the level with this one, but it's going to help keep that stress off your heart. So what are you going to do specifically to get those benefits? What is that moderate exercise? Well, the American Heart Association recommends 30 minutes of moderate exercise most days of the week, however many you can get in. Moderate means that you're breathing hard enough that you could still maybe have a conversation, but you'd have a hard time singing, for example. I want to see you guys try this in public. Go out and try to sing so you can figure out that moderate level, please. And videotape it and send it to me. Now, if you work up to more intense exercise, you can actually lower the total amount of minutes just a bit each week, and you can still get similar health benefits. But again, that 30 minutes is probably going to be a good thing to shoot for. Anything that's going to raise your heart rate is going to work. So walking at a good pace, or walking uphill, biking, jogging, dancing, swimming, and split up that time as well. You don't have to devote 30 minutes straight to getting the heart healthy benefits. If you've got a 30-minute lunch, go for a walk for 10 or 15 minutes or 20 minutes to get it in. If you can wake up 10 minutes earlier, do some jumping jacks or walk around your house or walk around your block. At night, same thing. Stand up while you're watching a television show. Jump up and down. Get that heart rate so you can feel it, feel that heart rate increase, feel you start to break a little bit of a sweat there. You're going to get those benefits. And don't forget about strength training. You will still get your heart elevated when you lift weights, and then you get so many other benefits when you build lean mass. You can talk to a personal trainer at your gym. You can look up some fun body weight exercises or hand weight exercises online. Or again, chat with your doctor to get started with this. 2 to 3 times a week, again, is going to be good for strength training. If you're doing more of a cardio type thing where you do it at a quicker pace, you can count that within that 30 minutes, or you can do it in addition to that. One combination type of thing is going to be yoga. This is a phenomenal exercise that not only helps your heart physically, but it's also going to help by working on stress and breathing techniques, which we're going to touch on here in a second. But here's the key. It honestly doesn't matter. Just get moving for that recommended amount of time, and you're going to see benefits for your heart. Don't overcomplicate exercise. That's when you can get into trouble and cause you to fall off the wagon. Just do something. Anything is better than nothing. And again, work up to that 30 minutes. You can start with 10 minutes, go from there. And listen to that again. Start with 10 minutes, 5 minutes, even if you've got that. You're creating a habit which you can build on later. You're creating that mindset where you're going to get up and you're going to do something. And again, you're going to see those heart health benefits. Small things are going to add up to big advances with your health. Okay, last but certainly not least, let's talk about stress in your heart. So what happens when we get stressed? Well, our body goes into what is called the fight or flight response, which is the natural response to stress that has been ingrained in our biology forever. Our breathing increases, our heart rate increases, which makes our blood pressure increase. Now, that's not a big deal once in a while, and it is beneficial if we're ever in a life or death situation. You get those good things going, and you can do crazy things when you are in a life and death situation. But here's the thing. Our body doesn't know the difference between a life or death situation or when we are just stressed because of traffic or a coworker or whatever it may be that day. A lot of us put ourselves into fight or flight on a daily basis, which our body is not designed to do. So our blood pressure stays up, which is going to lead to that heart disease. That's the concern here. Chronic stress can also lead to heart issues in a roundabout way by contributing to other negative behaviors. You think about things like emotional eating. When we get stressed, we reach for those simple carbohydrates, those snacks, those sugars. We don't sleep when we're stressed, which can raise our blood pressure, raise all sorts of things. And then we don't exercise because we feel like we just don't feel like doing it because we get in bad moods. And again, those are all going to be contributors to heart issues. So while we can never take away all the stress in our life, that's just not going to happen. I wish I could say that, but it's not going to. So we have to change our reaction and our perception to stress. We do have a webinar coming up in April that will deal with this exact thing in much greater detail, but here are just a few quick things you can do. Exercise. Hey, there you go. We just talked about that. Exercise releases those feel-good hormones that can counteract the effects of stress on our body. So that's a huge one. Again, even if it's a 5 or 10 minute walk to get out of the situation, it will help. When we're talking about daily habits to get into, planning ahead cannot be underestimated. If you know what you're eating for the day, if you know what your schedule is, if you know when you're going to have time to do this and do that, having that stuff planned ahead, you will be less stressed. I guarantee it. So start making a grocery list and meal plans for the week. Schedule in your exercise. Schedule in times to do things that you enjoy. And I know it's hard and sometimes it's not going to work. That's life. But look closely, dig deep into your schedule, and I bet you can find at least a few minutes for some much needed me time. Again, deep breathing or meditation should be included on that list as well when you're planning. Taking even 2 minutes to slow down, focus on that breathing will lower your heart rate, lower your blood pressure, and it's going to get you into a better place. Meditation is more active and in-depth. So again, do your research on this, talk to some other people who know, but it's something that is extremely valuable in reducing the effects of stress on your heart as well. The last tip includes kind of all the things we already talked about, and that is making a stress toolkit. This is simple. It's a list of things that you enjoy to do, that you can do in different situations to help reduce your stress in that moment. So make different lists, one for work, one for home, one for your road rage in the car, etc. Having a plan of action when you start to feel stress keeps you in control of the situation. So, I mean, it's as simple as getting up and walking around. It's as simple as putting 5 jumping jacks. It's deep breathing in your car, or putting in a CD that you like, whatever it may be. Again, it's going to keep you in control, and it's going to give you options to deal with that stress to help your heart. Okay, there it is. We talked about a lot. So again, don't try to do everything at once. When we have these webinars, we give you a lot of information. We don't mean to overwhelm you, but it's different options to get you started. So take 1 or 2 of the foods, incorporating them into your diet, schedule in some exercise, or simply make those stress toolkits to add to your life. Your heart and your health will absolutely thank you. So here's the next webinars coming up. March is What's in a Health Coach's Kitchen. So we've got favorite foods, recipes, tips, things that are going to help keep us healthy that we want to share. And then April, I already talked about this, the stress response, how to improve your reaction to stress, which is the most important thing. All right, and here's our contact information. We are on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we are on Instagram, we have our blog, which is where you're going to watch past webinars. And you can link to that from your My Health Check 360 page as well, or you can give us a call. You can call that 1-866 number, and then there's that contact information if you want the slides from today, or if you want to set up a chat with a health coach. So.